Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, Terminal 6, buzzed with the frenetic energy of a summer evening on June 27, 2025, at 7:32 p.m. PST. The 300-foot-long terminal hummed under the weight of travelers, weaving through a sea of 50-pound suitcases, their wheels clattering across polished marble floors like a staccato drumbeat. Overhead, fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow, reflecting off glass walls and overpriced coffee stands where $6 lattes steamed in sleek paper cups. The air carried the faint scent of jet fuel and perfume, mingling with the chatter of hurried goodbyes and the drone of flight announcements echoing from speakers perched 20 feet above. Outside, the California dusk painted the sky in hues of amber and violet, and through the towering windows of Terminal 6, the distant Hollywood sign glowed faintly, a beacon of dreams realized and deferred, its white letters standing 45 feet tall against the hills. Inside, the chaos was curated. Luxury luggage rolled past in Burberry patterns, tailored suits brushed shoulders with designer sneakers, and the elite moved with the practiced ease of those who owned the air they breathed. Amid this polished pandemonium, one man stood apart, unnoticed, exactly as he preferred. Keanu Reeves, 60, moved through the terminal with a quiet certainty that didn't demand attention, but seemed to bend the space around him. His faded black hoodie hung loose over a simple gray t-shirt, its edges frayed from years of wear. Scuffed leather boots, weathered by miles and time, tapped softly against the floor. A 20-pound leather satchel, its straps worn to a soft patina, hung over his shoulder, unassuming yet heavy with purpose. His dark hair, streaked with silver, fell just past his ears, framing a face etched with the kind of lines that told stories of resilience, not defeat. To the casual observer, he was just another traveler, perhaps a drifter or an aging artist, blending into the crowd of bespoke blazers and cashmere travel wraps. But Keanu was no ordinary passenger. Through his private firm, Nexus Capital, he held a 51% stake in Pacific Sky Airlines, the carrier operating Flight 672 to Tokyo, its 200-foot-long Boeing 787 waiting at Gate 64, its cabin cooled to a crisp 68 degrees. He was a tech investor now, a silent power broker who'd traded Hollywood's spotlight for boardroom shadows, building an empire not on fame, but on foresight. Yet his appearance, unpolished, unpretentious, belied the gravity of his influence, a fact that suited him just fine. Keanu clutched a first-class boarding pass for Pacific Sky Flight 672, Seat 2A, printed under the name K. Charles. No frills, no status flaunted, just a man traveling alone across 500 miles to Tokyo. He approached the gate where Laura Bennett, a gate agent in her late 30s with a sharp bob and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, stood behind the counter. Her navy uniform was crisp, her badge gleaming under the terminal's lights, but her gaze was surgical as it swept over Keanu's hoodie and boots. She scanned his boarding pass, and the machine beeped, flashing a small, unusual code, Nexus Priority. Laura's brow furrowed for a split second, barely a quarter-inch crease, but she waved it off, muttering, "Must be a glitch." She didn't make eye contact. "First class, straight ahead," she said, her tone clipped, as if doing him a favor by letting him board at all. Keanu nodded politely, his expression unreadable, and stepped onto the jet bridge, his satchel swaying slightly with each measured step. The brief interaction was a spark, unnoticed by the crowd, but charged with the weight of what was to come, a subtle hint of the power Laura had overlooked, setting the stage for a reckoning. The jet bridge led to the Boeing 787's interior, a sanctuary of luxury designed for the elite. Amber lights cast a warm glow over polished wood panels, reflecting like a private club at 35,000 feet. Leather seats, each wide enough to recline into a 6-foot-long bed, lined the first-class cabin, separated by frosted glass partitions. Gourmet menus, printed on thick cardstock, were tucked into seatbacks, promising Wagyu beef and artisanal cheeses. The air was cool, a steady 68 degrees, and carried the faint hum of the aircraft's systems, a reminder of the 900,000-pound machine that would soon slice through the Pacific sky. Keanu moved toward seat 2A, his steps unhurried, his posture relaxed, but he stopped short. Someone was already there. Victor Crane, a white hedge fund manager in his mid-50s, sprawled across the seat like it was his birthright. His $4,000 suit, tailored to a razor's edge, gleamed under the cabin lights. A glass of bourbon rested in his hand, ice clinking softly as he scrolled through a tablet, his salt and pepper hair catching the glow. He didn't glance up, his confidence a wall built on years of never being told no. Keanu checked his boarding pass again. 2A, K. Charles, Pacific Sky Flight 672. He turned to a flight attendant, Sarah Mitchell, her name tag pinned to a navy blazer. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her smile, practiced but cold, stopped short of warmth. "Excuse me," Keanu said, his voice low and steady. "I believe that's my seat." Sarah's eyes flicked over him. Hoodie, boots, satchel, in a half-second appraisal that felt like a lifetime. "Sir," she said, her tone polite but edged with dismissal, "there's been a last-minute seating adjustment. That seat's been reassigned. Please move to row 15, business class." She hadn't checked his ticket, hadn't asked his name, just delivered a polished brush-off. Keanu tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes meeting hers. "I wasn't informed of any change," he said evenly. "That's my assigned seat. Paid for, confirmed." Sarah's smile tightened, a quarter-inch shift. "We had a priority request from a platinum client," she said, lowering her voice as if sparing him embarrassment. "Row 15 is still nice. We're asking for your cooperation." Keanu glanced at Victor Crane, who still hadn't looked up, his bourbon glass tilted in a casual salute to his own importance. In that moment, Keanu understood. This wasn't about seats or policies. It was about assumptions, about a culture that judged worth by appearance, not truth. He said nothing, his silence heavier than words. With a slight nod, he turned and walked 50 feet back to row 15 business class, where the seats were comfortable but not first class, not where he belonged. As he settled into 15C, adjusting his satchel beneath the seat, the Hollywood sign's glow lingered in his mind, a symbol of his own journey, from an underestimated actor to a man who held the keys to an airline's future. The cabin hummed, the jet bridge retracted, and Pacific Sky Flight 672 prepared for takeoff. But the real turbulence was already brewing, sparked by a single act of prejudice at 68 degrees. The first-class cabin of Pacific Sky Flight 672 to Tokyo, cruising at 35,000 feet, was a cocoon of curated luxury. The 200-foot-long Boeing 787's interior glowed with amber lighting, casting soft reflections on polished wood panels. Leather seats, each stretching 6 feet when reclined, cradled the elite, while frosted glass partitions ensured privacy. The air, chilled to a crisp 68 degrees, carried the faint clink of champagne flutes and the murmur of self-assured voices. Gourmet menus promised Wagyu beef and artisanal cheeses, and the hum of the aircraft's engines, powering the 900,000-pound jet across 5,500 miles, was a distant lullaby. Keanu Reeves, his faded black hoodie and scuffed boots a stark contrast to the tailored suits around him, stepped toward seat 2A, his first-class boarding pass, K. Charles, Pacific Sky Flight 672, clutched in hand. His 20-pound leather satchel swayed lightly, its worn straps a testament to years of quiet journeys. But as he reached 2A, he stopped. Victor Crane, a 50-something hedge fund manager in a $4,000 suit, lounged in the seat, a bourbon glass in hand, ice cubes glinting as he scrolled through a tablet with the ease of a man who owned the world. Keanu glanced at his boarding pass, confirming 2A, then turned to a flight attendant, Sarah Mitchell, her navy blazer pristine, her blonde bun tight. Her name tag gleamed under the cabin's lights, but her smile was practiced, stopping short of warmth. "Excuse me," Keanu said, his voice low and steady, like a calm before a storm. "I believe that's my seat." Sarah's eyes flicked over him, hoodie, boots, satchel, in a half-second judgment that felt like a lifetime. "Sir," she replied, her tone polite but edged with dismissal. "There's been a last-minute seating adjustment. That seat's been reassigned. Please move to row 15 business class." She didn't check his ticket, didn't ask his name, just delivered a polished brush-off that cut deeper than words. Keanu tilted his head, his silver-streaked hair catching the light. "I wasn't informed of any change," he said evenly. "That's my assigned seat. Paid for, confirmed." Sarah's smile tightened, a quarter-inch shift that betrayed her impatience. "We had a priority request from a platinum client," she said, her voice dropping, as if sparing him embarrassment. "Row 15 is still nice. We're asking for your cooperation." She gestured 50 feet back to business class, her hand slicing through the cool air. Victor Crane, sprawled in 2A, didn't look up, his bourbon glass tilting in a casual salute to his own importance. Keanu's dark eyes lingered on him, then returned to Sarah. In that moment he understood. This wasn't about seats or policies. It was about assumptions, about a culture that weighed worth in dollars and appearances, not truth. The weight of the moment settled over him, heavy as the 900,000-pound jet slicing through the Pacific sky. Around him, the cabin's polished rhythm continued, but invisible lines were forming, lines Keanu had walked through all his life, lines of judgment, of dismissal, of quiet prejudice. In row 14, Tasha Johnson, a black nurse in her late 30s, sat with a medical journal open, her eyes narrowing as she caught the exchange. She'd faced that same look from hospital administrators, the one that said she didn't belong in the room, despite her 15 years saving lives. Her fingers tightened on the journal's pages, a silent recognition of the slight. Across the aisle, in row 16, Alex Kim, a 22-year-old Korean-American TikToker, sensed drama brewing. His phone, already in hand, began recording, the lens capturing Keanu's calm demeanor and Sarah's dismissive gesture. Alex's 500,000 followers were about to get a front-row seat to something big, his instincts honed by years of chasing viral moments. He adjusted his earbuds, whispering to himself, "This is gonna blow up." 2 rows ahead in row 13, a white retiree couple, the Harrisons, exchanged whispers over their complimentary sparkling water. "He must have used points," Mrs. Harrison muttered, her pearl earrings glinting. "Doesn't look first class," Mr. Harrison added, his eyes flicking to Keanu's hoodie before returning to his newspaper. Their voices were low, but not low enough, cutting through the cabin's hum like a blade. The altitude of judgment, already suffocating at 35,000 feet, pressed harder. Keanu said nothing, his silence louder than any protest. With a slight nod, he turned and walked 50 feet back to row 15, seat 15C in business class. The seats were comfortable, leather reclining with 4 feet of legroom, but they weren't first class, not where he belonged. He settled in, adjusting his satchel beneath the seat, its 20 pounds of weight grounding him. The cabin's eyes followed, then darted away, a choreography of glances that judged without speaking, condemned without trial. Tasha, in row 14, met his gaze for a moment, her expression saying, "It's not just you." She'd been overlooked too, her scrubs dismissed in favor of flashier credentials. Alex, still recording, zoomed in on Keanu's face, his fingers typing a caption. "They kicked this guy out of first class. Looks familiar." Pacific Sky bias. The Harrisons, oblivious, sipped their water, their whispers fading into the drone of the engines. Keanu leaned back, his calm masking a brewing storm. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a slim, unmarked phone, its matte black surface absorbing the cabin's light. The screen glowed with a Nexus Capital app, a single notification blinking Protocol 8A ready. Reason ethics breach. His thumb hovered over the screen, steady as the jet cruising at 550 miles per hour. He thought of Sarah's surgical dismissal, of Victor's entitled smirk, of the Harrisons' casual assumptions. He thought of Tasha's silent solidarity, of Alex's lens capturing the truth, of the Hollywood sign's glow back at LAX, a symbol of his own journey from underestimated actor to silent power broker. This wasn't about a seat. It was about a system that let prejudice pass as protocol, at 68 degrees, at 35,000 feet, in a world that still confused wealth with worth. Keanu's dark eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in resolve. His thumb pressed the screen, activating Protocol 8A, a shareholder clause embedded in Nexus Capital's ethics agreement, tied to his 51% stake in Pacific Sky Airlines. No sound, no spotlight, just a silent command that would ripple far beyond the cabin's amber glow. The jet hummed on, its 200-foot frame slicing through the night, but the real turbulence was about to begin, sparked by a man in a faded hoodie who'd been underestimated one time too many. At 35,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, Pacific Sky Flight 672 to Tokyo sliced through the night, its 200-foot-long Boeing 787 a silent giant, carrying 250 souls across 5,500 miles. The first-class cabin, cooled to a crisp 68-degree drive, glowed with amber light, its leather seats, each stretching 6 feet when reclined, cradling passengers in a bubble of curated luxury. Champagne flutes clinked softly, and the faint hum of the 900,000-pound jet's engines underscored the illusion of calm. In row 15C, business class, Keanu Reeves sat, his faded black hoodie blending into the dimmer lighting, his 20-pound leather satchel tucked beneath the seat. His calm exterior masked a storm, brewing not in the sky, but in the systems that governed wealth and power. The weight of Sarah Mitchell's dismissal, Victor Crane's entitled smirk, and the Harrisons' whispered assumptions lingered like the jet's contrail, trailing behind at 550 miles per hour. Keanu's dark eyes, framed by silver-streaked hair, stared at the in-flight magazine he wasn't reading. Instead, his fingers rested on a slim, unmarked phone, its matte black surface absorbing the cabin's glow. The screen blinked with a Nexus Capital app, a single notification pulsing Protocol 8A ready. Reason ethics breach. Keanu's thumb hovered over the screen, steady as the jet cruising at 35,000 feet. He thought of the Hollywood sign's glow back at LAX, a symbol of his journey from underestimated actor to silent power broker with a 51% stake in Pacific Sky Airlines. He thought of Sarah's surgical brush-off, never checking his ticket, judging his hoodie and scuffed boots. He thought of Victor in 2A, sipping bourbon, oblivious to the throne he'd stolen. This wasn't about a seat, it was about a culture that let prejudice pass as protocol. His thumb pressed confirm, activating Protocol 8A, a shareholder clause embedded in Nexus Capital's ethics agreement. No sound, no spotlight, just a silent command that rippled outward like a shockwave. Within 150 seconds, Nexus's algorithm executed a high-frequency sell-off of 12 million Pacific Sky shares, flooding the market with precision. The stock plummeted 32%, erasing $700 million in market value. The ripple didn't stop there. It halted a $3 billion merger with Global Air, a deal set to create 15,000 U.S. jobs but built on a corporate culture that ignored safety audits to save $50 million. In New York, Bloomberg's ticker flashed red Pacific Sky in freefall ethics breach halts 3B merger. The stakes weren't just financial, they were American, tied to jobs, trust, and the promise of a better future. In row 16, Alex Kim, the 22-year-old Korean-American TikToker, felt the cabin's tension shift. His phone, already recording, captured Keanu's quiet resolve as he tapped the screen. Alex's video, captioned, "They kicked Keanu Reeves out of first-class Josh Pacific Sky bias," hit TikTok like a lightning strike, surging to 2 million views in 15 minutes. His 500,000 followers spread it like wildfire. On X, posts erupted across the U.S. A Seattle barista tweeted, "Pacific Sky's done. Kicked out Keanu? Justice for Keanu," with 10,000 retweets. A Miami student posted, "This is why we love Keanu. Zero ego, all class," garnering 15,000 likes. The hashtag, Pacific Sky Bias, trended nationwide, hitting 4 million posts by the time the jet crossed 1,000 miles of ocean. Reddit's R Airline Justice thread exploded with 50,000 upvotes, users dissecting Sarah's dismissal and Victor's arrogance. A Denver teacher wrote, "This is America in 2025, judging a hoodie over a heart." A Chicago trucker added, "Bet they wouldn't move a Wall Street suit." The digital storm mirrored the U.S.'s hyper-connected culture, where viral justice could reshape a narrative at 550 miles per hour. In the first-class galley, 50 feet forward, flight manager David Ruiz stood frozen, his tablet pulsing with a red alert protocol 8A ownership override. K. Reeves, verified stakeholder. His dark eyes widened, sweat beading at his collar despite the 68-degree enough cabin. He whispered to Sarah Mitchell, whose blonde bun seemed to tighten with each word. "He's in 15C, David hissed, his voice barely audible over the hum of the galley's coffee machine. K. Charles is Keanu Reeves. He owns 51% of Pacific Sky." Sarah's face drained, her practiced smile collapsing like the airline's stock. "That's impossible," she stammered, her hands gripping the tablet as if it could undo her mistake. She'd judged Keanu's hoodie, his boots, his lack of flash, never checking his ticket, never imagining he held the keys to their future. The tablet's screen flashed again. Nexus Capital merger freeze initiated. Investor notifications active. David tapped his earpiece, his voice low but urgent. "Zurich's on the line. They're saying he triggered an ethics clause. This isn't just a seating error. It's a corporate earthquake." Back in row 15C, Keanu sat still, his phone now dark, his calm unshaken. Tasha Johnson, the black nurse in row 14, glanced at him, her medical journal forgotten. She'd seen the same dismissal in hospital corridors, where her scrubs were overlooked for flashier credentials. Her eyes met Keanu's, a silent nod passing between them, a shared understanding of being misjudged. In row 16, Alex's phone glowed, his live stream now at 2.5 million views, comments flooding in, "Keanu's the GOAT. Pacific Sky's toast." The Harrisons in row 13, their sparkling water untouched, whispered nervously, sensing the shift. "Wasn't he in first class?" Mrs. Harrison muttered, her pearl earrings catching the light. "Must have been a mistake," Mr. Harrison replied, but his voice lacked conviction. The cabin's polished rhythm, champagne clinks, soft murmurs, felt hollow now, the air charged with the static of an approaching storm. Keanu flipped a page in the in-flight magazine, not reading, just waiting. His silence was a weapon, honed over years of navigating Hollywood's biases and boardroom battles. The $3 billion merger, the 15,000 jobs, the safety audits Pacific Sky had buried, all hung in the balance, tied to a single act of prejudice at 35,000 feet. In the galley, David's tablet updated internal investigation launched. Leadership review pending. Sarah's hands trembled, her earlier confidence replaced by the weight of her error. Across the U.S., X posts surged. A Los Angeles artist wrote, "Keanu just exposed Pacific Sky's soul." Pacific Sky bias. The digital wave wasn't just a trend, it was a reckoning, amplifying the voices of everyday Americans who saw themselves in Keanu's quiet stand. The jet flew on, its 200-foot frame steady, but the real turbulence had begun, sparked by a man in a faded hoodie who'd been underestimated one time too many. At 35,000 feet, Pacific Sky Flight 672 to Tokyo cruised through the night, its 200-foot-long Boeing 787 slicing through the Pacific sky at 550 miles per hour. The first-class cabin, cooled to a steady 68 degrees Celsius, shimmered with amber light, its 6-foot-long leather seats and frosted glass partitions cocooning the elite in curated luxury. Champagne flutes clinked softly, but the air crackled with tension, as if the 900,000-pound jet sensed the storm brewing within. In row 15C, business class, Keanu Reeves sat, his faded black hoodie absorbing the dimmer light, his 20-pound leather satchel tucked beneath the seat. The Nexus Capital app on his slim, unmarked phone had already unleashed Protocol 8A, crashing Pacific Sky's stock by 32%, a $700 million loss, and freezing a $3 billion merger with Global Air, threatening 15,000 U.S. jobs. The cabin's polished rhythm had fractured, replaced by whispers and glowing phone screens. Alex Kim's TikTok video captioned, "They kicked Keanu Reeves out of first class." The Mark Pacific Sky bias had surged to 2.5 million views, with X posts trending at 4 million under Daesh Justice for Keanu. The galley's red alerts had left flight manager David Ruiz and flight attendant Sarah Mitchell reeling, their realization dawning. Keanu, in row 15C, owned 51% of Pacific Sky. The cabin fell silent as Keanu rose from 15C, his 5'11" frame moving with deliberate calm. His scuffed boots tapped softly against the carpet, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the 50-foot walk to first class. Passengers froze, their eyes tracking him, some in awe, others in unease. Tasha Johnson, the black nurse in row 14, clutched her medical journal, her gaze steady with solidarity. Alex Kim, in row 16, angled his phone, live streaming to his 500,000 followers, the view count ticking toward 3 million. The Harrisons, the retiree couple in row 13, sat rigid, their sparkling water untouched. Their earlier whispers, "He must have used points," now a weight they couldn't shake. Keanu parted the first-class curtain, the amber light casting his silver-streaked hair in a soft glow. The cabin's luxury felt exposed, its 68-degree air heavy with anticipation. Sarah Mitchell, her blonde bun tight, stood near the galley, her practiced smile gone. Victor Crane, sprawled in seat 2A, sipped his bourbon, oblivious, his $4,000 suit a stark contrast to Keanu's hoodie. Keanu stopped before Sarah, his dark eyes locking onto hers. The cabin held its breath, the hum of the jet's engines fading into the background. 20 years ago, he said, his voice low but clear, like still water over stone. Hollywood studios told me I didn't look like a star. Too quiet, too different. I built Nexus Capital anyway, from nothing, in a 10 by 12-foot apartment in L.A. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. You moved me to row 15 because of my hoodie, not my ticket. You didn't check my name. You judged my worth by my clothes. Sarah's face flushed, her hands trembling at her sides, her navy blazer no longer a shield. I was following procedure, she stammered, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Keanu's gaze didn't waver. No, he said. You followed prejudice packaged as protocol. Tasha Johnson stood from row 14, her 5'6" frame steady, her medical journal falling to her seat. I've been ignored too, she said, her voice sharp yet weary, cutting through the cabin like a scalpel. In scrubs, in hospitals, in life, people look past me because I don't fit their picture. Enough. Her words, raw and unfiltered, galvanized the cabin, a spark igniting a fire. Passengers shifted, some nodding, others gripping their phones tighter. Tasha's stand, rooted in her 15 years of facing bias as a nurse, echoed Keanu's, tying their struggles to the American fight for fairness. A dream, born under the Hollywood sign's glow. Keanu turned to Victor Crane, who looked up from 2A, his bourbon glass trembling, ice clinking softly. His salt and pepper hair caught the light, but his smirk faltered under Keanu's steady gaze. You mistook quiet for weakness, Keanu said, his voice calm but unyielding. Nexus Capital owns 51% of Pacific Sky. Protocol 8A just froze your $3 billion merger with Global Air. He reached into his hoodie, pulling out a slim, platinum-edged card bearing the Nexus capital crest. He held it up, just long enough for Sarah, Victor, and the first-class passengers to see. Then tucked it away. Victor's face drained, his bourbon glass tilting, a quarter-inch of liquid spilling onto his suit. "This is a PR stunt," he scoffed, but his voice wavered, his confidence crumbling like Pacific Sky's stock. Keanu stepped closer to 2A, his hand resting gently on the headrest. "You didn't just take my seat," he said. "You exposed a culture that values flash over truth. Nexus is pulling everything. Investors, partnerships, trust." The cabin erupted in a quiet uproar. Alex's live stream surged to 3 million views, capturing Tasha's stand and Keanu's words. Comments flooded in. "Keanu's our hero, Harker Pacific Sky bias." "Tasha just spoke for all of us." Posts glowed across the cabin, passengers typing furiously as San Francisco coder wrote. Keanu's tearing down their system with 20,000 retweets. A Dallas mother posted, "This is why we stand Keanu, hard over hype," with 25,000 likes. The Harrisons, shamed, stayed silent, their pearl earrings and newspaper forgotten, their earlier assumptions a heavy burden. Other passengers cheered softly, their phones alight with "Wired Justice for Keanu," now trending at 5 million posts. The uprising wasn't just digital. It was human, a reflection of America's love for underdog triumphs, for those who rise against the odds, like Keanu had under Hollywood's scrutiny. In the galley, David Ruiz, the flight manager, watched, his tablet flashing Protocol 8A merger freeze confirmed. Internal audit active. His sweat beaded, despite the 68-degree affair, his earpiece buzzing with panicked calls from Pacific Sky's LA headquarters. Sarah stood frozen, her hands clasped, her mistake now a viral symbol of systemic bias. The cabin's amber light no longer felt warm. It felt like a spotlight on a culture unraveling. Keanu stood at 2A, his presence a quiet storm, his Hollywood-born resilience shaking the 200-foot jet's polished facade. The confrontation wasn't revenge. It was a reckoning, a demand for truth at 35,000 feet, where prejudice had nowhere to hide. As Pacific Sky Flight 672 descended through the cloud cover over Tokyo, its 200-foot-long Boeing 787 touched down smoothly on the tarmac at Narita International Airport, 5,500 miles from LAX. The cabin, cooled to a steady 68 degrees, retained its amber-lit luxury, 6-foot-long leather seats, frosted glass partitions, and the faint clink of champagne flutes. But the illusion of calm had shattered. At 35,000 feet, Keanu Reeves, in his faded black hoodie and scuffed boots, had activated Protocol 8A, triggering a 32% stock crash that erased $700 million from Pacific Sky Airlines' market value and froze a $3 billion merger with Global Air, threatening 15,000 U.S. jobs. The 900,000-pound jet taxied to the gate, but the real turbulence lingered in the cabin, where passengers gripped glowing phones, their screens alight with X-posts and Alex Kim's TikTok video, now surging past 3 million views under Pacific Sky bias. Keanu sat in seat 2A, his 20-pound leather satchel at his feet, his dark eyes steady, silver-streaked hair catching the cabin's light. The confrontation, his words to Sarah Mitchell, Tasha Johnson's stand, Victor Crane's fall, had shifted the air, exposing a culture of prejudice at 550 miles per hour. By the time the landing gear kissed the runway, Pacific Sky's corporate brass was scrambling. In Los Angeles, 7,000 miles away, boardrooms buzzed with panic. CNN's ticker blazed across screens in airport lounges. Pacific Sky loses $700 after owner ejected mid-flight. Bloomberg followed ethics breach halts 3B merger, jobs at risk. The news wasn't just financial. It was a cultural indictment, resonating with Americans who valued fairness over flash. In the first-class galley, Sarah Mitchell, her blonde bun fraying, sat on a jump seat, her navy blazer creased. Her name trended under Wire Pacific Sky Bias, linked to Alex's viral video, now at 10 million views. Two men in dark suits boarded with airport security, their badges flashing internal affairs credentials. "Ms. Mitchell," one said, his voice flat. "You'll need to remain for a debrief," Sarah nodded, her face pale, her earlier confidence dissolved. Her dismissal of Keanu, judging his hoodie, not his ticket, had become a symbol of systemic bias, trending with 5 million X posts. She stared at her crew tablet, its screen frozen on a red alert. Internal investigation launched. Leadership review pending. Victor Crane in seat 2A until Keanu reclaimed it, sat slumped in business class, his $4,000 suit rumpled, his bourbon glass long abandoned. His travel privileges with Pacific Sky and its partner carriers were revoked. A notification delivered mid-flight via his tablet. His portfolio, tied to the merger, was tanking, with investors pulling out and his hedge fund facing audits. The man who'd smirked at Keanu's displacement, calling first class too crowded, was no longer relevant, his arrogance exposed at 35,000 feet. Passengers avoided his gaze, their earlier chuckles replaced by silence. The Harrisons, the retiree couple in row 13, sat quiet, their pearl earrings and newspaper forgotten, their whispers about Keanu's points now a source of shame. The cabin's 68-degree air felt colder, heavier, as the weight of their complicity settled. In the galley, David Ruiz, the flight manager, approached Keanu in 2A. His tablet clutched tightly, sweat beading despite the cool air. "Mr. Reeves," he said, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I should have spoken up when Sarah moved you. I saw the Nexus priority code but didn't act." Keanu's dark eyes met his, not with anger, but with a quiet gravity that cut deeper. "Silence has a price, David," he said softly. "Pay it by changing things." David nodded, his resolve hardening like steel forged in fire. He'd seen the red alert, Protocol 8A ownership override. K. Reeves, verified stakeholder, and knew this wasn't just a mistake, but a cultural failure. Keanu's words, rooted in his Hollywood journey from underestimated actor to Nexus Capital's silent power broker, echoed the American dream: change begins with action, not apologies. The social media storm raged on, amplifying the fallout. Alex Kim's TikTok video, capturing Tasha's stand and Keanu's confrontation, hit 10 million views by landing. Its comments a chorus of American voices. "Keanu's the quiet king. Pacific Sky's done." A Reddit thread, "Our Airline Justice," garnered 75,000 upvotes, with users calling Keanu the people's hero. An X post from a New York bartender went viral with 30,000 retweets. Keanu didn't just take his seat back, he took their whole system down. A Chicago student tweeted, "This is why we love Keanu, no ego, just justice," with 40,000 likes. The Wire Pacific Sky Bias hashtag, now at 6 million posts, reflected America's hyper-connected culture, where grassroots voices, bartenders, students, teachers, could reshape a corporate narrative at 550 miles per hour. Tasha Johnson, in row 14, scrolled through the posts, her medical journal forgotten. Her stand, "I've been ignored too in Scrubs in Life," had sparked a wave, resonating with Americans who'd faced similar dismissals. The digital uprising wasn't just a trend. It was a cultural shift, exposing systemic bias through the lens of everyday voices. Keanu remained in 2A, his satchel at his feet, his calm unshaken. He opened a small notebook, scribbling a single line, then closed it. This wasn't revenge, it was correction, a demand for accountability rooted in his journey under the Hollywood sign's glow. The cabin's passengers, once complicit in their silence, now grappled with the fallout. Some typed furiously, their phones glowing with X posts. Keanu exposed their soul. Others sat still, Their earlier judgments, a heavy burden. The Harrisons, in row 13, avoided eye contact, their sparkling water untouched. David returned to the galley, his tablet flashing new alerts. Merger freeze confirmed. Safety audit violations under review. Pacific Sky's culture, built on flash over substance, was unraveling, its 25,000 employees facing a reckoning. In Tokyo's terminal, 3 suits waited, not for Keanu, but for Victor, escorting him out as his career crumbled. Sarah, still seated, faced her own reckoning. Her name a hashtag, her mistake a mirror for a flawed system. The jet's engines powered down, but the storm didn't. Keanu's silence had spoken louder than any speech, exposing a culture that valued appearances over truth. The $700 million loss, the frozen merger, the 15,000 jobs at risk. These were more than numbers. They were a call to fix what was broken. As passengers disembarked, their phones still glowing, the cabin felt different. Its 200-foot frame no longer a sanctuary of privilege, but a stage where America's values, fairness, resilience, accountability, had been tested and found wanting. Keanu's stand, sparked at 35,000 feet, wasn't just about a seat. It was about a system, and the world was watching it burn. 3 months after Pacific Sky Flight 672 touched down in Tokyo, the ripple effects of Keanu Reeves' stand at 35,000 feet had reshaped an airline and sparked a global conversation. The 200-foot-long Boeing 787, once a stage for prejudice at 550 miles per hour, had landed not just in Narita, but in the collective consciousness of millions. The $700 million stock crash and frozen $3 billion merger with Global Air, which threatened 15,000 U.S. jobs, had exposed Pacific Sky's flawed culture, amplified by Alex Kim's 10 million view TikTok and 6 million Nashrik Pacific Sky Bias X posts. Keanu, in his faded black hoodie and scuffed boots, had reclaimed seat 2A, not with a shout, but with a silent command. Protocol 8A, unleashing a reckoning from his 20-pound leather satchel. The fallout had humbled Sarah Mitchell, whose dismissal of Keanu trended infamously, and toppled Victor Crane, whose revoked privileges and tanking portfolio marked his fall. The Harrisons' silence and Tasha Johnson's stand lingered. But the story didn't end with a landing. It began anew, grounded in lessons of justice, resilience, and the quiet power to change a system. In Los Angeles, 7,000 miles from Tokyo, Pacific Sky Airlines announced the Sky Equal program in September 2025. A sweeping reform training 25,000 employees, from gate agents to executives, on bias awareness and passenger equity. Backed by a $15 million donation from Keanu's Nexus Capital, the program mandated workshops, real-time ethics reporting, and a passenger rights charter, ensuring no one would be judged by a hoodie or a suit at 68 degrees in a first-class cabin. The initiative wasn't just a policy. It was a cultural reset, addressing the systemic flaws Keanu had exposed. News outlets, from CNN to the Wall Street Journal, covered the launch Pacific Sky's $15 million overhaul signals industry shift. The program's scale, 25,000 employees across 50 U.S. cities, grounded its impact in tangible detail, resonating with Americans who craved accountability over apologies. It wasn't about erasing the past, but building a future where worth wasn't measured by appearances, a value as American as the 45-foot-tall Hollywood sign glowing over LAX. Keanu, true to his nature, didn't bask in the spotlight. On a crisp October evening, he sat in a quiet LAX office, 300 feet from Terminal 6's chaos of 50-pound suitcases and $6 lattes. Across from him was Mia Chen, a 24-year-old coder, her laptop open to a prototype for an airline ethics app. Her nervous fingers tapped the table, but Keanu's dark eyes, framed by silver-streaked hair, were steady, encouraging. "Build something that lifts everyone, not just yourself," he said, his voice low, echoing the resilience that had carried him from a 10 by 12-foot apartment in Hollywood to a 51% stake in Pacific Sky. Mia nodded, her code a seed for change, inspired by Keanu's stand. His mentorship wasn't just a gesture. It was a passing of the torch, tying his Hollywood-born journey to the American ideal of opportunity, where one voice could rewrite a system's rules. The lessons of Flight 672 stretched beyond the 900,000-pound jet. First, power isn't loud. It's what you fix when no one's watching. Keanu's silence, from row 15C to 2A, spoke louder than any speech, proving that true strength lies in action, not ego. Second, prejudice thrives in silence, but courage can break it. Tasha's stand, "I've been ignored too in scrubs in life," showed that speaking up, even at personal risk, can spark change. A lesson for every American facing dismissal in boardrooms, hospitals, or classrooms. Third, systems don't change themselves, people do. The Sky Equal program, born from Keanu's $15 million push, reminded us that accountability starts with individuals demanding better, from 35,000 feet to ground level. Finally, community amplifies truth. Alex's viral TikTok and the X posts from bartenders, students, and teachers turned a single injustice into a movement, reflecting America's digital heartbeat, where grassroots voices can topple giants. As Keanu walked through LAX's Terminal 6, the Hollywood sign glowed in the distance, its 45-foot letters a beacon of his quiet power. His faded hoodie blended into the crowd, but his impact didn't. Passengers rolled 50-pound suitcases past, unaware of the man who'd reshaped an airline without raising his voice. The cabin's lesson lingered. Power isn't in the loudest shout, but in the choices made in silence. The system's fixed when no one's watching. Sarah faced her debrief, her name a cautionary tale. Victor's portfolio crumbled, his arrogance a footnote. David Ruiz, inspired by Keanu's words, "Pay it by changing things," vowed to challenge bias. His resolve a step toward reform. Tasha returned to her hospital, her stand inspiring colleagues, while Alex's video, now at 12 million views, fueled Reddit threads, calling Keanu the Quiet King. The Harrisons, humbled, carried their silence as a lesson in humility. This story isn't just about a flight, it's about us. It's about the times we've stayed quiet, the judgments we've let pass, and the moments we can choose to act. Keanu's stand at 35,000 feet reminds us that one voice, one action, can shift a culture, whether in a 200-foot jet or a 300-foot terminal. So, what hit you hardest? The injustice of Keanu's displacement, Tasha's courage, or the system's fall? Drop a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from, whether it's New York, Texas, or beyond. Your voice matters, just like Keanu's, Tasha's, and Alex's did. And if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Join our channel to keep up with stories of quiet power, justice, and change. Because together, we can build a world that lifts everyone, not just a few. Thank you for watching, for sharing, and for being part of this reckoning. Let's keep it going.